Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Aconcagua webinar. My name is Mary Brown, and I am the guide manager at Alpine Ascents. I'll also be moderating our chat and Q&A today. We are thrilled to have you join us as we explore one of the most iconic peaks in the world, Aconcagua, aka the Stone Sentinel, one of the seven summits, rising a lofty 22,837 feet, or 6,960.8 meters above sea level. Leading our discussion is none other than Rachel Molstad, Alpine Ascents senior guide and resident Aconcagua expert. Rachel has been a full-time guide since 2014 with an impressive background guiding in the Cordillera Real of the Andes, where she has called La Paz, Bolivia home since 2013. With extensive experience in high-altitude international expeditions, Rachel has successfully guided climbers to 6,000-meter summits on the peaks on over 200 occasions across North and South America. Today, she'll be sharing her insights and experiences on Aconcagua, offering you a deep dive into what it takes to tackle this formidable mountain. Her presentation will run for about 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. Please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen throughout the presentation. We'll address them at the very end. While Rachel gets set up, let's get the chat rolling. If you're compelled, please drop your name, where you're streaming in from, and what about Aconcagua has captured your imagination in the chat. And I will go off camera now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. I'm excited to be here and share a bit more about Aconcagua with y'all. So Mary already gave us the elevation of the peak, and it is the highest mountain in South America and also the highest mountain outside of Asia. Working again. So I wanted to take a little bit more of a zoomed out view of where Aconcagua is located in the world. Y'all know that it is a peak in the Andes, and I've got it marked there as to where it falls in the Andes. So the Andes go all the way from Colombia, all the way down the continent of South America, and to the tip of Argentina and Chile. And Aconcagua is a little bit further down on the range. One of the really neat things to think about Aconcagua as a mountain is you have the Pacific Ocean up on the west side. Before we go up in the mountains, Mendoza is about 2,500 feet. We go up to 23,000 feet as the crow flies. From there, it's only about 50, 60 miles of elevation gain. So that terrain in this area is incredibly just range to get in. Thinking about climbing Argentina, really accessible, or just looking to climb something in the Andes somewhere in South America. And Aconcagua is a country that feels quite accessible in terms of traveling to it and feeling comfortable moving into the country. And Aconcagua fits this really interesting because it is almost 23,000 feet. So very, very high altitude, but at the same time, there's being roped up, camping on glaciers, some of those other a bit more technical pieces that usually come with that kind of elevation gain on mountains around the world. So it's a good mountain for folks who are wanting to step into more high altitude mountaineering, but you're not going to add in those pieces of the technical glaciated travel parts of an expedition. So it fits a really interesting, unique spot there. I'll read you the information we have on the website, just one of the little pieces. There's a ton more information on the website as far as the required skill level, what we recommend for that you have as experience before coming on an Aconcagua expedition. And so while technical skills, they're strongly recommended that climbers getting Mount Rainier or the equivalent. to arrive with crampon and climbing experience. So basically what that means is oftentimes folks will have the experience of so Aconcagua is a huge step up from that. And it's good to know that a background of some more backpacking experience carrying loads, carrying what is carrying 45 pounds, 50 pounds on your back for multiple days, then getting into camp, setting up, taking down camp every day. What does that feel like? So it helps to have a background in some even just backpacking experience in different kinds of weather conditions. Some very basic, does not need to be super technical or involved or long, but some basic crampon climbing experience. Those pieces help a lot to make Aconcagua a better fit and a better option for folks. And there's a ton of information on the website about just a little bit more about what Aconcagua involves. There's a section on there. It's called "Are You Ready?" And there's some self-check questions. Those are nice to look for and run through too, as you're deciding if you're ready for an Aconcagua trip or if there's some other pieces that you'd like to add in before moving on to an Aconcagua expedition. Yay, the screen's still changing. So on your itinerary, day 1 and day 2 are travel days, and you will arrive in Mendoza up to the morning of day 2 of the itinerary. And so we're going to have our first meeting as a group in the afternoon of day 2, usually about 3 p.m. We'll have a gear check in the Hyatt, which is the hotel that we usually lodge in arriving in Mendoza. And it is good to try to arrive in Mendoza a little bit early if you can. Every once in a while, we'll have climbers that'll arrive a little bit late, delayed, or maybe their luggage might be delayed just because of flight changes and such. So if you have time in your schedule, it can be nice to try and arrive a little bit early, but up to the morning of day 2, you'd want to be in Mendoza, which is usually beautiful, sunny, and warm during the Aconcagua season. So pack some clothes for being in town and in a warm weather environment. We will have a gear check and start meeting everyone as a team, getting to know each other. You'll get to meet your guides, and we'll go through a bunch of the logistical pieces that you need to know moving forward from when we leave Mendoza. The day after will be day 3 on the itinerary. And we will go through the gear, all the gear that we packed piece by piece by piece, and make sure that we have everything that we need to head up into the mountains. So definitely take a really detailed list and bring everything on that. So look at the descriptions of what stuff should be. There are a lot of items that are available in Mendoza, but they are subpar in quality and to obtain. And so a couple of things that aren't available in Mendoza, no matter what, are good quality double boots, things like the full zip insulated pant layer. Those things are absolutely impossible to find in Mendoza in any shape or form. So bring the gear with you. And we will also start to divide out the gear in the stages that we'll need to drop it off and use it over the next couple of days of the trip. And I'll show you a bit more what that looks like on the map. After we do our gear check, we will have dinner together in Mendoza. Mendoza has a very vibrant culinary scene, and so we'll get to enjoy a really good meal in Mendoza. And then the next day, we will leave the city and we will head out to Penitentes, which is a little, used to be used as a little ski town. No longer hasn't gotten the snow to be used as a ski area for quite a few years, but we'll travel from Mendoza, it's about 2,500 feet, up to Uspallata, where we'll have a stop for lunch. So we go from Mendoza out on the plains, we go through a front range, and then Uspallata is a little bit higher, it's about 6,200 feet, a plateau in the middle before we get up into the higher part of the range, and we get to Penitentes. So that drive is about 3.5 hours, 4 hours usually in the drive time. And Penitentes is our destination for that day 3 night. It'll be a hotel where you'll have the option to shower one more time before we go into the mountain. We'll have our meals and penitentes, and one more night before we head actually into the park itself and start trekking. Before we get to penitentes, we will drop off our loads that are going to be hauled up by the mules. So when we're in Mendoza, we'll sort out anything that doesn't need to come up into the mountains and that can stay at the hotel. So that would be some extra clothes for hanging out in sunny Mendoza. If you brought a laptop, things that do not need to come up into the mountains whatsoever, those can stay at the hotel in Mendoza, and they're very used to storing luggage for, even though it's going to be a couple of weeks before we'll pick it up again, they're very used to storing that luggage. So we'll leave those things there. And then we'll separate out the duffels that are going to be carried by the mules for the first part of our trip. So the first part of our trip, on the way up into our base camps, mules will transport all of our personal gear. So we'll separate that out into our duffels, and then we'll separate out our trekking packs. So when we start off on these first days trekking into the mountains, that's going to be the things that we need access to throughout the day. The duffels that travel with our mules, we will not have access to those duffels throughout the day. We'll have access to them every night again. So in our trekking packs, we're going to have things that we need throughout the day: food, water, layers that are appropriate, just a couple of emergency pieces like a headlamp, tiny first aid kit for blisters, or a couple band-aids, just a few things that we need throughout the day. Fourth piece of luggage that we're going to separate out. So we've got 3 so far. Anything that stays in the town of Mendoza doesn't come with us, stays in the hotel. We'll pack a duffel for the mules to take up. We'll pack our trekking pack. Separate from that, we can also separate out things that we need for one last overnight in a hotel before we head up into the mountains. And that we can also leave before we head up in. Or coming out of the mountains, a clean change of clothes, shower stuff before that we're using for the last night. And then, actually, I'm going to skip one more forward. So on the website, on the tab that says gear list, the overview tab right here has the actual gear list itself. And then there's a tab that's often missed by folks that says luggage logistics. So what I just explained with the luggage there is really confusing. But if you read through this whole section here before you arrive in Mendoza, it'll help it make a lot more sense as to where we're going to divide up all the pieces. And we'll help you through every bit of that. We go through lists of the gear check and start dividing stuff out. But that's a piece that's really helpful to look at before you arrive in Mendoza, because this Aconcagua has a lot of logistics and just pieces that are happening. So when we arrive in Penitentes to spend our night there, before we get to the hotel, we'll drop off our duffels, and they will be then staged to the next day, start heading up with us up the mountain. For the Vacas route, we're going to talk about the Vacas route and the breakdown of how that whole side of the mountain goes, and then the normal route separately. So we offer 2 routes on the mountain, and they're a bit different, and the logistics to them and how the whole expedition comes together are a bit different. And so we'll start with the Vacas route first. You can see it in blue on this map here. The Vacas route begins with a trek of about 3 days, about 24 miles, into our base camp, which is Plaza Argentina. So day 1, we take a short drive, 10 minutes from the hotel up to the park entrance, check in with the rangers there, and we begin our trek. So trekking day 1 is to the spot marked on there, Pampa de Leñas. Then trekking day 2 is to Casa de Piedra. Trekking day 3 is all the way up to Plaza Argentina. So Casa de Piedra are tent camps. They're very simple camps where we'll arrive, set up tents. There are domes to have our meals inside of, but not a huge amount of infrastructure there. We're just trekking our way up the valley. The folks driving the mules are coming with us every day, so you have access to that big duffel again every night. In the morning, you pack it up, and then the mules haul it up for you to the next camp until we get up to Plaza Argentina. And here's a breakdown of what those days look like, the elevations and the mileage. This picture is of some folks crossing the river on day 3 of that trek in. It's a fun little piece that you get to do on the Vacas route. We can usually coordinate with the arrieros to ride across on their mules across the river in the early morning, because the water's cold in the early morning. But you're looking at 5 to 7 hours of trekking every day till we get to Plaza Argentina. And you can see here a view above this area down here with the structures and the tents. That is Plaza Argentina. So it's a little town that pops up during the season on that side of the mountain. And it's a little oasis of luxury and comfort on the mountain. So we have, you can see in the photo on the left, we have dining tents to sit in, and tables, chairs, eating utensils. There is a whole staff of folks there cooking meals for us. And they are really, really good at what they do. They serve some amazing food. So we get to spend some time there and rest and refuel. There are showers available. There is Wi-Fi available. So showers purchase, and showers are, they're very, very nice. So we get to kind of reset at these spots in the mountain where we have these larger camps. So for the Vacas route side, Plaza Argentina is the base camp site, and you'll spend 4 nights there. So we'll arrive after the trek, and then spend 1 night, and then rest for a whole day, spend another night, and then the next day, we usually do a carry up to the first camp. So what that means is we're gonna start caterpillaring our way up the mountain. I'll show you on the next slide here. So from Plaza Argentina, we take a rest day. The next day, we'll take a carry up to Camp 1. So it moves in the pattern of carry up to a camp, rest, and then move up to a camp. Usually some combination of those days, and the order of them can change around. But what that means is on the Vacas route, there is no porter support built in for any of the gear. So the whole team works together to move up both group gear and personal gear. So personal gear is your sleeping bag, your crampons, your layers, your extra snacks, all those pieces that are your things that you brought that are on the gear list. The group gear is fuel, stoves, tents, pots, pans that we need to cook for ourselves up there. So all of those pieces. And so the group, we coordinate to move all those pieces up to the camp. So when we take a carry day up, we take up things that we don't necessarily need at that camp. Maybe that could be fuel. That could be extra food supplies that we'll need further up the mountain. That could be, we don't need our crampons yet. Those can go higher up the mountain. And so we move as many things as we can up, kind of try and divide up the load on a carry day. And then when we get to a move day, we move the rest of it, because then your tents are going to come with you. The rest of the gear that you're a little more actively using is going to come with you on the move day. So we'll move kind of this caterpillar style up the mountain. So from Plaza Argentina, we will do a carry day up to Camp 1, come back down and rest in Plaza Argentina, get in a last shower, get the dust off, and then have a move day up to Camp 1 and move the rest of our stuff up. And then you spend the night in Camp 1. So these camps on each route, whether it's the Vacas or the normal route, has 3 upper mountain camps. So on the Vaca side, that is Camp 1 at about 16,300. Then it's Guanacos at about 18,000, and Cholera at 19,600. So those are the 3 camps we're going to move our way up through. So Camp 1 will arrive usually the next day, and depending on whether you can change this around. The next day could be a rest day. Weather looks good, maybe the next day is a carry day up to Guanacos. But there'll be this motion of carry, rest, move, and then we'll make our way up to Guanacos, and then you make your way up to Cholera. This is what the days look like on the upper mountain. Trekking up at a slow, high altitude pace with gear on your back and taking in the good views. We have on either route, we have 2 weather days built into the schedule. So that means if there is no bad weather anywhere along the way that delays anything, on the Vacas route, you'll be on the upper mountains. The upper mountain is anywhere above those base camps. Be on the upper mountain from about day 10 to day 18 of the itinerary. If we're waiting out weather, anywhere along that line of moving up the camps, or maybe for a summit day, could be up to day 20, not 20 days, sorry, up to day 20 on the upper mountain of the Vacas route. When we are able to move up to cholera at 19,600 feet, that is the last camp on the mountain. And notice that it turns into, I turned it green here because we've got blue is the Vacas route, and then yellow is the normal side route. So both those routes come together and converge in cholera. And so if you're either route, you will have the same summit day. So summit day from cholera up to hopefully high up on the mountain starts out very early in the morning, probably somewhere around 5 a.m. As a walking time. And we're trying to time the best temperature window of the day combined with daylight. And cholera is 19.6. We move up to some sections you might have heard of. Up here, we've got, in this area, we have Independencia, is a nice break spot, usually, and that's about 21,000 feet. We come up to a section a little bit beyond that, which is called the Door to the Wind. It's often an area of the mountain where we get the winds just sweep up this face here. But that leads you into the Traverse. If you've heard of any of these pieces talked about, maybe. The Traverse ends at the cave. There's not an actual cave up there. It's just sort of this wall that shelters you a little bit, and that's about 22,000 feet. From there, it's another 500-ish, depending on where you count the piece. Section called the Canaleta, kind of a chute that we zigzag up that's a bit steeper, and that takes you to the final crest, the Guanacos crest ridgeline up to the summit itself. It's about 8-9 hours of uphill travel, 4 or 5 hours of downhill travel. You're looking at a 12 to 14-hour day. The distance is extremely minimal, but because of the altitude, we travel very, very slowly. It's hard work to work your way up at that altitude. Getting up to almost 23,000 feet without just acclimating your way along and struggling with the lack of oxygen, you move slowly. Hopefully, with any luck, we can get up there and see these views. The picture on the right, the big picture is of the summit plateau. So you can see it's actually you get up on this little plateau. It's not that little. There's quite a bit of space up there to look around. And you can see down the south face of Aconcagua a bit and just feel really, really, really high up in the world. The views are amazing from up there. After the summit day, we come back down to cholera, so it's like here-ish, where my cursor is. And then the next day is a descent down the other side of the mountain. So the Vacas route completes a 360 of the mountain. So we start out on the blue line and then hopefully head up to the summit and then come down on the main yellow line. And that's the normal route. The normal route goes up that yellow line and then back down it. The Vacas route goes up the blue and then down the yellow. So it makes a full 360 of the mountain. So after summit day, so you'll spend a minimum of 2 nights in cholera. Sorry, you don't want to spend more than 2 nights. You'll spend in cholera the night that you get there and then the night after summit night. After that, it's about a 50 to 100-foot descent down into Plaza de Mulas. Doesn't take very long. We get to kind of just work our way down on scree. And Plaza de Mulas is base camp for the normal route side. So you pop down again on the other side of the mountain into this little camp of luxury again. Once again, showers available, Wi-Fi available, table, chairs, all of the matter a lot in the mountains. Your duffels, because we came up to Plaza Argentina with our duffels, and that's as far as the mules go. They go up to Plaza Argentina. After that, we were doing these low carries, carrying the gear up. The duffels stay at Plaza Argentina until we get to a point where we go, yes, okay, we're able to move up to the summit, and we're going to be able to go down to the Plaza de Mula side. So at that point, they'll let the camp down there know, and they'll send your duffels all the way around. Your duffels plus any extra bits that you didn't want to carry further up the mountain, and then those will meet you in Plaza de Mulas. So that's how the duffels get around, because we're using backpacks from Plaza Argentina up and over and back to Plaza de Mulas. Duffels at Plaza Argentina will come around and meet you again in Plaza de Mulas. And the day after we arrive at Plaza de Mulas, the day after that is a hike all the way out. So from Plaza de Mulas, following that yellow line all the way out basically to the red line, and then making our way back to Mendoza. So you then just take one day to hike your way out the valley on the other side and then complete the 360. So that's how the Vacas route is known as the 360 route. It's also, you'll hear it sometimes referred to as a 360 because you make this whole circle around a series of valleys around the mountain. So let's go back here for a second. So now let's take a look at the normal route and how it differs. So the normal route takes this yellow line up, and then it will take the yellow line back down. The yellow line, which is the normal route on this map here, begins either route is in Penitentes, the night there, last night in a hotel. We'll also take another short little transfer, 10 minutes to get up to the park entrance. But now the park entrance we're going to use is right over here. And we'll start hiking. Day one is hiking from the park entrance to the camp of Confluencia, which is a camp very similar to Plaza Argentina, a lot lower in elevation. Plaza Argentina was 13.8, Confluencia is 11.2, but we're going to get up to a higher camp on the snowboard outside. After another, the first day of Confluencia, 11,200 feet, and you're going to spend 2 nights there. The second night you're going to spend is because we're going to take an acclimatization hike up to the south face overlook. So actually entering this other valley here, and it's an all-day hike that gets you up to about 13,400 feet. And you get to this viewpoint of the south face of Aconcagua, which is a 9,000-foot wall of rock and ice. And it's one of the world's great mountaineering faces. It's a really cool hike. So, and it also acclimates us, helps us acclimate. So we take a hike up there, come back, spend our second night in Confluencia. And then the day after that, we make the move. This is about 11 miles from Confluencia all the way up to Plaza de Mulas. Plaza de Mulas is about 14,400 feet. So I'll give you a breakdown of what those elevations and mileage and such look like. This picture is just hiking up the valley towards the mountain. You can see that's Aconcagua in the distance, the snowy peak. And then we arrive in Plaza de Mulas. So another spot of luxury on the mountain. And you can see that this one is much bigger than the one on the Plaza Argentina side. And it's the biggest one of these temporary little cities that pops up on the mountain. And this also has showers, Wi-Fi, tables, chairs, dining tents, and a whole staff who is working to cook amazing meals for us. We spend 5 nights at this camp. So it's a total of 5 nights at 14,400 feet. It's a good spot. It's a good elevation to spend a bit more time, let our bodies catch up to our elevation game before we go further up. And while we're there, we spend some time doing some other we'll take a rest day first. The first day we arrive, just like on the Plaza Argentina side, the first day we arrive is a rest day, refresh, reset. The day after that, we take an acclimatization hike to Cerro Bonete. And you can actually see, I'll go back a slide again. You can see it in the back here in the corner, just the tips cut off. That's a very dry year in this photo, but oftentimes has snow on it, and we have to go through some bits of snow to get there often. But it's a really neat hike to see back down the valley. This photo is actually looking back down the valley that we would have hiked up the day and a half before. And it's an opportunity to acclimate and also get in a fully separate summit. We're actually summiting a peak on this hike. And then we make our way back to Place des Mulas. And usually what we'll do is the day after that, we'll do a acclimatization hike up to the first camp on the upper mountain on this side of the mountain. So upper mountain, I'm referring to anything above Place des Mulas on this side. And once again, we have 3 upper mountain camps: Canada at about 16,600 feet, Nido, the Condor's Nest, which is about 18,300, and Cholera again at 19,600. So we use 3 camps again, and then share the same summit route with the Vacas route. So we'll usually do a acclimatization hike up to Canada. We can also take up part of our personal gear that we would move up to Canada when we go up there to actually sleep. So we can divide up the load that we'd carry up to Canada. Because we have 2 times that we're going to head up there. So one's just an acclimatization hike. We get up there, come back down, spend the night in Place des Mulas, expose our bodies to the altitude a little bit, and come back down to Place des Mulas. And then we'll have another second rest day in Place des Mulas before we actually move our way up the mountain to then sleep in the upper mountain, move up through those camps. So 5 nights in Place des Mulas. Then we leave the luxuries of the camp down below in Place des Mulas and make our way up to Canada. Ideally, if the weather allows, we're spending 1 night in Canada. So these camps on the upper mountain have, we'll set up the tents, and they have also domes. So the structures that you saw in the photos of the camp that are kind of long dining tents, but on these upper mountain camps, there are domes that are a bit more conducive to withstanding the winds up in the camps. And so those domes are nice spots to share a meal together. So little touches of luxury. We'll spend ideally 1 night in Canada as the weather allows, and then move our way up to Nido. And Nido is a spot we will spend 2 nights as a minimum. We'll arrive one day and then take a rest day there. And then if the weather says, okay, go, we can continue for up the mountain, then head on up to Cholera the day after that. It's a good spot though, if we're seeing weather in the forecast for a summit day that is too windy. Often that's the issue in Aconcagua. We can stay there another night or 2, let the weather window hopefully align for us, and then move our way up to Cholera. 19,600. And then you have the same summit day profile as on the Vacas route. When we come back, actually, I'm going to show you. There you go. So it'll be days 11 to 16, or potentially if we're using weather days higher up in the mountains, somewhere in that upper mountain section. Usually that's what we'll use them. That's not the only way that the schedule might come together, but usually we're using those weather days up to day 18 of the itinerary on the upper mountain with the normal route. So this is actually a photo of Cholera, the Camp Cholera, and looking up towards it starts zigzagging this slope here in the distance. So once again, you get 2 nights in Cholera. Nobody ever wants to plan to spend more nights up there. It's a spot where we want to spend the minimum amount of time possible. We get up there, have a summit day, come back down to Cholera, and then get out of there. But it's not a spot where you plan to wait out the weather. If we're waiting out the weather, it's too fierce to be in Cholera. So 2 nights up there. So we finish up with the summit attempt day, and then we have that about 5,200 foot elevation drop the next day. So the next day is reversing all of that elevation gain we did in just a few hours, what we took days and days to do. Downhill at high altitude is much different than the uphill. So we'll head down from Cholera down to Place des Mulas the day after the summit, get back to Place des Mulas, pick up again the duffels that we left. You can leave any tidbits there that you don't want to take higher up on the mountain, and move our way all the way from Place des Mulas out of the park the next day. And I should mention that on this route, for the movement of our stuff, it's very different than on the Vacas route. So on the normal route, there is porter support built into the price for all of the group gear. So that means that from Plaza de Mulas up and down again to Plaza de Mulas on this route, you are not responsible for carrying any of the tents, fuel, pots, pans, the breakfasts and dinners that are part of our equipment. You're not responsible for carrying any of that, just your personal gear. Only the personal gear. So that's your sleeping bag, your layers, your stuff that you brought to take up the mountain. That's the stuff that you're responsible for carrying. It's a huge difference between the two routes. Yeah, so we hike our way out and make our way back to Mendoza. So moving a little bit more into those two routes. The Vacas route involves a lot more time on the upper mountain, time hauling loads up on the upper mountain. So it's more the physically demanding route, but it really offers you the chance to be involved with a pretty pure expedition style on the upper mountain itself of hauling up those loads, carrying things up, and how that works and how you organize for that, the physical demands of that. So porters are available. You can purchase porter support for those moves on the upper mountain, but they're more expensive than on the normal route because you're looking at about 7 days of load hauling with a 45 to 55 pound pack. So the pack weights on either route when we're carrying loads will be about the same, but there's more days of load hauling on the Vacas route. You get the benefit of traversing your way all around the mountain too. You get to see both sides of it, which is another cool thing with the Vacas route. So the normal route, you have a bit less days on the upper mountain, and then because the porter support is built in for those group gear pieces, you're only responsible for carrying your personal gear up. But that translates to about 3 days of load hauling with a full pack weight. So that's Canada to Nido, Nido to Cholera, and then the downhill. The day that we go up to Canada for our acclimatization hike, you can take up some of your stuff on that day and sort of split up the load between it's like a carry day and a move day, because you can take half of your personal stuff up there and then take the rest of it up on the day that we actually move up there to sleep. So 3 days of the full pack. And it also includes, you get to go up and see that south face, which is pretty impressive. You get to go up and summit Bonete and have an additional little summit in the Andes there. So if you're looking for a little bit, not quite as long of an itinerary, it's 21 days total travel time from the US back to the US. Route is 23 days because you spend some more time on that upper mountain. So those are the kind of the main differences between the two, and all depending on which kind of an expedition more appeals to you. There's pros and cons both, just which one kind of fits the model that you're looking for. The main differences to think about. So diving a little bit more into pack weights, when we are headed from park entrances up to either Plaza de Mulas or Plaza Argentina, depending on the side that you're on, you just have your day pack with your food, water, layers that you need for the day. Those things in your pack, a couple other tiny little pieces. So your pack should weigh around 15 pounds, either route up to the base camps. And I'm meaning Plaza de Mulas or Plaza Argentina. On the days that you're carrying loads, if you do not have porter support, you're going to have a pack that weighs 45 to 55 pounds on either route. If you choose to have porter support and have the porter carry your load, whatever it might be that day of carrying loads, then you're going to end up with about 15 to 20 pounds of weight. The porters carry a maximum of 20 kilos, which is about 44 pounds. You can find the exact price list on the website. Mary can even drop in a link, but for the costs for porters, and the prices we have on the website are from the 2023, 2024 season, so that's last year's prices. When we get a little bit closer to the season start date, we'll have updated costs for this upcoming year. Something similar, but always changes a little bit. And this year, So this was a piece that's different from in the past. This year, any of the porter support that you would like to hire is hired in country in Argentina. So you can decide that you would like to hire porters for the entire and the entirety of every move that you're going to be doing, or you can decide, a lot of people decide, I don't want to carry my pack down 5,000 feet after hopefully making the summit the day before. So you can choose just pieces, a couple days that you want porters to carry your load, or you can choose to have a porter carry all of them. Note that because we have more carry days on the Vacas route, purchasing full porters would be a lot more expensive than on the normal route. So the normal route last year, it was coming in at about $1,300 for all of those move days where you'd have to carry loads. And on the Vacas, it's more like 3,000. So that's an important one to keep in mind when you're also deciding how you'd like to climb the mountain, which, if you'd like porters or not. So a few gear tips. We talked about a couple of these things at the beginning of this slideshow, but really follow the gear list very exactly. That we can find in your existing items are not as good of quality and they're much more expensive than what you're going to find in the US. So one way to make sure you arrive with all your things too, I stick some of the most key pieces into your carry-on luggage. So your on your expedition, your insulated pants. Think about a couple of those really key pieces. Those are ones I definitely would stick in my carry-on luggage to make sure they arrive with me. I always get nervous when I see folks arrive at the gear check with brand new boots that just look shiny. Make sure that you spend some time in your boots, hiking in your boots before you get to Argentina. And that's a little bit of that is breaking in your boots, getting them to be a little bit more soft and flexible. But I think the larger part of that is getting your feet used to being in double boots, getting calluses in all the right spots. Aconcagua can be a very cold and windy mountain. So don't skimp on those warm layers. Bring the parka that's big enough that follows the instructions on the gear list. That gear list has been put together and honed and micro adjusted for many years. So the details. When you're picking out your expedition mitt and you're looking at sizing it, you need to be able to fit a light fleece liner glove inside your expedition mitt. And that's not the Velcroed in liner that comes with the expedition mitt, separate from that. And what we need is when you're on a summit type day, those kind of temperatures, you need to be able to take up your big mitt and not go to bare skin. You need to have a fleece layer underneath so you can still get a snack and whatever else without going to bare skin. It makes a huge difference. So make sure you size your mitts that way. Make sure you practice that you can cover every piece of your skin with your face covering system, with your balaclava, with your goggles. We usually practice that somewhere up in the high camps that we know that we're ready to cover up every teeny tiny little piece of skin. A lot of times folks benefit from having a little more water capacity. If you're somebody who in your day-to-day life really drinks a lot of water, Aconcagua is very dry. So we drink a lot of water to stay well on Aconcagua. And so for some of the longer days, you might want a little bit more than that 2-liter capacity that is on the gear list. And one of the things that's optional on the gear list is a 1/2-liter baby Nalgene. That can be really helpful. Just add in a little bit more water capacity for some of the very long days. Make sure that you bring that thermos. It's a part of our water capacity especially for summit day. Oftentimes I'll see folks come with their sunglasses that they feel like are kind of dark, but they're not true glacier mountaineering glasses, your glacier glasses. You need to have true glacier glasses, high altitude, bright sun. We need the right glasses. A lot of folks have been in recent years with the collapsible folding trekking poles. I think they call them Z poles a lot of the time. Those trekking poles, you can't do very much to adjust the height of them. And when we're moving slowly uphill with big packs on, it's nice to be able to adjust them a bit lower than those poles allow you the option to adjust. So that could be if you have the option of which poles you're going to bring, I'd suggest the poles that are the 3-section poles, not the Z poles. I often suggest that folks bring a little bit extra supplies to take care of their skin on Aconcagua. It's extremely, extremely dry. It can be very cold, windy, dusty, all combined. So your like hands can all get pretty easily torn up if you don't have some extra supplies to really take care of your skin. So there's just a few tips, but there's a lot of tips built into the year list itself if you really read through everything piece by piece there. So on the website too, if you look on the Alpine Ascents website and you go through all the details, you'll find information for supplemental food that you'll want to bring. We'll provide meals in all the camps. There's breakfasts and dinners on the upper mountains, and some supplemental pieces for your lunches on the upper mountain. But there's a list in there of a few other pieces that you'll want to bring to supplement with your food. So you can find that on the website. And there's information out there about the fees for the park permit, miscellaneous expenses that might come up that you want to budget for. There's a huge section that's very, very detailed on how to train for an Aconcagua expedition, what kind of ascent rates with what kind of a weight on your back that you should be training for. So there's tons of other details there to go in and look through to get more pieces. But okay, one last bit that I want to add in here, just based on doing a lot of Aconcagua expeditions, spending a couple months there every year for a number of years now. I've seen that, I'll just read this, attentive, personal, physical, and mental self-care are huge keys to success. So everybody knows you have to train and get ready for an expedition like this, but sometimes it's not as intuitive to think about being mentally prepared for spending 3 weeks on a long expedition with limited connection to the outside world, limited connection with your routines, your friends and family, will be uncomfortable for good periods of time. You'll be working on acclimating. That process can be uncomfortable. It's harder to breathe up there. It can be very cold. It can be very windy. The air is very dry, and all of that is uncomfortable. So prepare too by bringing some things in your kit that just, something that's light, but that motivates you mentally and refreshes you and rejuvenates you. For some people, they like podcasts. You bring a Kindle. I've seen some groups really bond well over card games, bringing a pack of Uno, whatever it might be. So think about music, things that are going to rejuvenate you and keep you mentally working towards the goal. Aconcagua is also a mountain where the teeny tiny pieces all add up. Teeny tiny pieces in terms of how you're taking care of yourself in the day to day. So if you start off the expedition and you don't appropriately hydrate in the dry air, you get behind in your acclimatization, which is not good. You need to be on top of sunscreen, not let your skin start to get burnt because it doesn't heal very well up there, and then it gets vulnerable. Managing your nutrition, not letting your body get run down. And all of those are an amount of time on the mountain. We get somewhere high up there at Cholera, feeling like, yeah, I'm ready, I'm strong still mentally and physically. So I just encourage you to think about all those other little pieces as you are prepping for this and considering what you want to bring as well. It all just adds up to be quite important on a mountain like this, because you're going to train physically and then you get there and you got to stay strong mentally and physically all the way through to get to Cholera in a good spot to be able to hopefully get the good weather window and give it a shot up there. But encourage folks always to just enjoy all the pieces of an expedition like this. The experience of being in Argentina and being around the massive hills that are in this part of the Andes, and the colors and the lights of the light against the different rock and rock there. It's just, there's a lot of things to enjoy all along the way. So yeah, that's all I have for slides, and yeah, about 15 minutes in, so I will stop sharing my screen and let Mary pass questions over to us.
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
see. There we go. Question over to me.
Rachel, that was amazing. Every time you give a webinar, I always learn so much. I'm here like taking notes. So thank you for that. What a great presentation. Are you ready to dive into some questions from the chat? Not the chat, from the
I am.
Q&A box. Okay. I was Googling this to try and figure it out while you were talking, but do you happen to know if drones are allowed to film in the area? I have no idea. I couldn't find it on the internet.
I do not know the correct answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Cameron, we will table that, and I will. You can email us at Alpine Ascents, and we will try and figure out the answer.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next one. Rachel, not sure if you'll cover this in your presentation, but I'm curious to know if there are any restrictions at the border to bringing in food into Argentina. While I understand there will be limits on fresh fruit, meat, etc., I wonder if you can bring in pre-packaged foods such as pepperoni sticks, trail mix, etc.
Things like trail mix, dry goods that are packaged in their original packaging. I haven't heard we have any issues with those yet. Things like pepperoni sticks that are a meat product, maybe that's a little riskier, but more on the like granola bars and trail mix and those kind of dry goods. I haven't heard of any issues with those. Yeah.
And on the gear list, there is a list of recommended snacks for the expedition. Let's see, excellent. Let me answer that. Is the Vacas Valley the same as the false Polish route?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Called false Polish, called the 360 traverse, called the Vacas route. Yeah.
Okay. I've never heard this question before. Do they serve red wine on the mountain camp? In the camp? I don't know.
Yes, there is red wine available for purchase, usually in the like the Plaza de Mulas and yeah, in a couple spots, but that's for celebrating on the way down.
Heard it here first. Do you recommend? Oh, this is just to preface this, we are not medical doctors, or Rachel is a medical professional. She has a wilderness first responder. But what advice do you have regarding high altitude medication for Aconcagua?
So there is actually in the gear list, there's a little piece on there about recommended medications to bring with you in your med kit. So I definitely recommend going and talking to your doctor and seeing if they can give you some of those options that are listed on the list there, if they're appropriate for you in coordination with your doctor. As far as I'm assuming this question is also referring to Diamox, definitely go talk to your doctor, get a prescription for that. You can bring that along with you. We don't normally recommend starting that prophylactically, but bring it with you so we have it available as a tool for us. One of the pieces I didn't mention is on the mountain, we have doctors available there, and they are available at a couple different points in our base camps on the mountain. And so they're also available as a resource should we have questions about things coming up. But we also do med checks with them. So at Confluencia, Plaza Mulas, Plaza Argentina, before we can advance from those camps, we have to go in and check with the doctors, and that's part of our park permit. And so they will just do a quick, just like a 2-minute check-in with everybody, and they'll check your pulse rate, your blood oxygenation, the percentage. They will, the higher camps usually listen for lung sounds to catch really early signs of pulmonary edema. They will talk to folks, just see how they're feeling, if they're having any altitude symptoms and such. They'll do a check-in too, actually as a part of our trip. But yeah, it's just another piece I didn't mention too. So there are doctors also available on the mountain too.
Okay, we have some more questions coming in. Are there options to bring supplemental oxygen? What would the logistics of this be?
Right now, we don't have anything set up for a program for ascending with oxygen. That's not a part of our program whatsoever right now. But we do have oxygen at different points on the mountain for emergency use, but not as a part of the ascent plan, right, the way we have things set up for now.
Excellent. Next question. Anything in particular that female climbers need to know or prepare? And before you say your tips, in the chat, I'm going to pop a link to a webinar we did. We spent 45 minutes going over a bunch of amazing recommendations and advice from some of our female mountain guides about this particular issue with some great links. So I'm going to pop that into the chat too, so you can watch a whole webinar about it. But Rachel, if you have anything to add.
There's nothing that's specific to Aconcagua itself that is not specific to women in the mountains. Otherwise, I'd check out that webinar. It does a really good job of going through a ton of things. I just bounced to that.
And I'll also pop in some blog posts that we also did about that as well. And see what options are available for someone who may not be acclimatizing well for additional rest and catching up with the group on both routes, please. I need to learn how to talk.
Yeah. So the schedule that we have and the way that we climb the mountain that itinerary has been honed over a couple decades of climbing on Aconcagua. And it's an itinerary that works for the vast majority of people to acclimate. There's not really leeway there for, I'd like to do 9 nights at the base camp as opposed to the 5. We'll have a group schedule that needs to be coordinated together, but it really is an itinerary that's been honed to work for the vast majority of folks, and it really does work pretty well.
What is the procedure for human waste? Do we carry CMCs? CMC is short for clean mountain cans. It's just a bucket that you poop in, or similar.
Somebody's been on Denali.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we have the base camps, we have some sort of a toilet already there. So it's some camps it's a vault toilet, like a pit toilet, and Confluencia, the system's a little bit different, but there's a toilet structure to use. When we are at our high camps, we have a system right now where we sleep in the North Face VE25 tents. If you're familiar with those, when they get trashed in the winds and the dust on Aconcagua, we cut out the bottom of them, and then they become a toilet tent. And then we use a bag system in there, and then you just deposit your bag with the bag of blue bags. And then there is built-in porter support into the trip price for porters to take that human waste down the mountain. So at no point do you have to be collecting and moving your own waste down the mountain. There's porter support built in from each camp for the actually trash and human waste. When we are in between camps, we will have the wag bag, blue bag system that will give you that you can use in between camps and then deposit it in one of our more established camps.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm going to pop over to the chat because I saw some questions popping up. Things are coming up. Where to go? How cold does it get on the mountain, on the upper mountain in December? Roughly, I know weather is hard to
roughly. Temperatures are so it's a little hard to describe because the sun warms us up quite a bit in the day. And so if it's not windy, it can feel quite warm and you won't need too many layers. But all of a sudden, if we get a little bit of a breeze, the breeze is very, very cold. So the temperatures are very variable throughout the day, and then the nighttime drop incredibly low compared to during the day. But let's say nighttime low temperatures somewhere up at the high camp. I mean, it can be 0. It can be. So we have to watch the wind chill on those cold days too.
Let's see some other questions. Can you give us some more information about tipping for guides, porters, people at camp? I dropped the link to the tipping recommendations in the chat earlier, but I can do it again. Specifically, is U.S. currency preferred? What is there? Should you do big bills, small bills, really old, torn bills? Like, what are some tips?
So, yeah, U.S. currency is definitely preferred. I don't know if you've all heard about the currency crisis, the inflation that Argentina has been going through. U.S. bills are very much preferred. And larger denominations will be worth a lot more money to local guides. 50s and 100s are worth a lot more to them in just the exchange rate. Bills that are of a newer series, clean, not written on with marker or stapled through or ripped, those are also it's important that the bills are in good condition, because otherwise sometimes they won't even be accepted for exchange, or they're worth a lot less. And so good clean bills and higher denominations. And also, I know in the US we use a lot of cash apps to pass money around that way. But Argentinians, because of all the banking rules, they don't have access to like a PayPal or a Venmo, or so cash is definitely preferred for them.
Okay, thank you for that. Oh, we are already after 12. Just to respect everyone's time, how about, Rachel, are you available for 3 final questions?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Um, okay, some of these, okay, there are a couple, there's at least 2 or 3 questions that are all about how technical is the climbing, how much rope, how much are you roped up, you're using ice axe, like how technical is it?
Mm-hmm. We are never crossing a glacier. We don't need to rope up at all. So there's no rope team travel on this expedition. And we use crampons anymore as the mountain gets drier. We don't use crampons very much. Almost always use them on summit days, and very rarely anywhere else in the mountain beyond that. So it's not highly involved in terms of ropes and crampons and ice axe, but it really is helpful to have some sort of a very basic experience with ice axe and crampons before you come on Aconcagua, but it does not need to be anything fancy.
Okay, I see 2 questions about insulated boots, specifically double boots. When do you start wearing your double boots on the climb typically?
I'm going to say in general on the upper mountain, so above the base camps. And there might be a little bit of leeway on the lower part of the upper mountain there, some depending on what's going on. But just in general, think about it like the approach, when whatever approach hiking shoes you decided to bring, and then the upper mountain in your double boots, just as a kind of a general break there.
I'm going to add a part 2 to the same question. Is this a mountain that you need to use triple boots on?
No, I don't recommend bringing triple boots. They're not a good fit for Aconcagua, because oftentimes we'll be using the boots and temperatures are variable, and so it can get warm, and then if you have a triple boot on, it's too much. And the other thing happens too is the triple boots often have this softer kind of a sole to save weight, because they're expecting that you're using a triple boot somewhere where there's snow, which is not always true anywhere in the world. And that softer sole gets just shredded right away in a couple days on Aconcagua, because we're spending a lot of time in colder temperatures, but on sharp scree and rock, and so those boots will get kind of unnecessarily destroyed, and not necessary for warmth either.
Got it. Okay, last and final question. If you get to one of the high camps and you can't go further for some reason, what options do you have?
So you can always do what we kind of term as an early departure out of the mountains. You can go further down the mountain, and we can arrange how that happens. There's a lot of pieces of logistics there depending on what's going on. But if you're somewhere high up on the mountain and you shouldn't be there, based on how you're acclimating or how you're feeling mentally, whatever else is going on, we can always bring you down lower on the mountain. And the details of how that happens will be different every single time, but we can always take you down further down the mountain, or all the way out to Mendoza. You always have those options to leave the mountain. Yeah.
Nice. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for taking part of your lunch hour to learn about Aconcagua with our resident expert, Rachel. Hopefully this is a informative presentation for you all. I know I learned a ton. If you are feeling like, oh my gosh, I should have taken notes, don't worry. We are recording the webinar. We'll post it on the blog along with a bunch of different helpful links, so you can have it all synthesized in one place for you to refer back to later. Before we let you go for the rest of the afternoon, Rachel, what is your personal favorite part about Aconcagua?
For me personally, it's going back to a place that is just really, the Argentinians are really friendly and welcoming, And whenever there's a holiday, they have big barbecues and just they're just a big family there. So that's a really fun part for me.
Wonderful. Well, you heard it here first. Well, last at the end of the webinar. Well, thank you all again, Rachel. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Also, do feel free to email us at Alpine Ascents if you have any other questions at just climb@alpineascents.com. We have resident gear experts who can answer any of your questions about logistics. So feel free to contact us if any other things come up. But with that, we'll bid you farewell. Thanks, everyone.